you come across a fence, you should probably not tear it down because you don't know what it keeps in or out. The Pride movement has torn down a lot of fences, and maybe—
Oh, the irony of this sentence. Let's play it one more time, because this is exactly what he's trying to do right now to queer folk.
Is based on the observation that if you're walking somewhere you don't understand and you come across a fence, you should probably not tear it down because you don't know.
That's what you are trying to do to gay people, to trans people, to queer people. I did want to quickly listen to this man's opinion. You may know him as the individual who started using his massive social media platform to spread a rumor that there was a forced milking breeding program being done by the CCP in China. He responded to a video and said, just another day in CCP hell. It turned out that in fact was not a communist Chinese breeding program. It in fact was cock milking fetish porn. He was simply fooled by the footage, and then shared it with his, again, millions of followers, some of whom may be underage. But that notwithstanding, I think that is probably what he's most notable for. But he has some stuff and news to give us on this most auspicious of...
Having this interview on Pride Month, and so what are my thoughts about Pride Month? Well, the first thing I would say is that you should be very careful what you name things.
You should be very careful what you wear. I swear, his tailors are just fucking with them on a regular basis. Like, yeah, we got you, Jordan. So we're gonna put you in heaven and hell. You definitely won't look like a Batman villain. It'll be cool. People will find it cool.
And pride is not a virtue, and I've brought that up with people before, and their objection always is, well, they don't really mean pride. People are just trying to affirm their own identities. And, fair enough, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess that one is kind of a hard one to just go after. He will. There's a but at the end of this for sure. And I think he's referring to biblical pride, Like, oh, pride cometh before the fall. Oh, bloody hell, they don't know.
To some degree, but that was the name that was chosen, and that's the name that stuck, and pride is a cardinal sin, and there's a reason for that.
But, like, not everyone believes in the Bible, So, yeah. Have you ever eaten too much food? Well, probably not anymore. I bet he's had too much steak. Actually, he had too much apple cider. Gluttony. Yes. And then sloth. Well, no, actually the opposite of sloth. He didn't do sloth. He said he couldn't sleep for a week. But there you go, right? There's other sins that I'm sure you've engaged in.
And the reason is...
the man is wrath all the time. His wrath manifest until lust kicks in. And then he's like, oh, bloody hell, getting confused.
That pride means something like stubborn refusal to change when evidence of error is accruing. And it's not a good thing. There's a real tinge of narcissism, sexual narcissism, about the whole pride spectacle.
Oh, whoa. Damn. Sexual narcissism. Tell me more. Don't promise me a good time, Jordan.
And, do people have the right to express their sexuality the way they see fit? To some degree, if it's
well, thank you. Oh, he's so kind. He's so kind. I would argue that, I don't think you have a right to broadcast to your underage audience, full-on video of hardcore cock milking porn. I'd say that's pretty irresponsible to use with a massive platform. Just me. But yeah,
sensual and among adults, but generally among human beings with any degree of civilized comportment whatsoever, it's a pretty damn private affair. We tend to be private.
Well, I don't know. For like straight folk, you pretty much just walk down the street, and then all of a sudden you look a little bit up, and there's a giant billboard, and then there's a whole bunch of beautiful people, in underwear, and then it's like, you want this, don't you? And I was like, I want what? I don't even know what you're selling yet. You walk over, and it's like, hey, do you like burgers? Kind of. Do you want to see burgers just dripping onto a really hot woman's tits? And it's like, what? But I guess. Do I have a choice?
In our sexual conduct as a species. And so this isn't exactly private. And it's also the case that identities based on something as narrow as sexual desire, let's say, aren't identities at all. They're
Right. So I would just put this out there. I would assume that if we lived in a, non-hateful, non-bigoted, and also non-insecure, because really, the persecution of LGBT people usually comes from insecurity, deep, deep insecurity. People who are just like, oh, gross, sick, there are parts about this I haven't explored in myself. But like, I would assume if that wasn't it, then people wouldn't have to go through the trouble of having to try and normalize, something that is otherwise should be considered completely normal. I agree. Love is love. And that's just how we should really be treating this. But that's not how we treat it. As of very, very recently, in most of our lifetimes, gay people got allowed to marry in the same way straight people could. In our lifetimes, in some people's lifetimes, sodomy was no longer considered illegal, which was, the straight people do have anal sex, not gay sex, but anal sex. But even then, sodomy was still illegal for the purposes of usually going after homosexual men. There are times when you could have been jailed for being homosexual. Again, all those things. It's one of the reasons why there are pushbacks, why there are bricks thrown, why there are rallies. I mean, people need to remember the first Pride was a riot. And it was a protest, and that's where this all comes from. It's not some kind of weird biblical, people, they're trying to take some kind of pleasure in showing us their own sexuality, and enough is enough, keep it to the bedroom.
Pronouncements of subjection to instinctual whim. And I also have a real problem with the idea of the LGBT plus, etc. community, because it's not a community. And it's especially not a community right now because the trans...
it's one of those things where you're trying your best to, divide it, cut wedges in it, I think that one of the most upsetting things, especially to the right-wing bigots too, is that, like, there's just a fuck ton of normies who do not hate gay people the way they hate gay people. So sometimes that community can feel even bigger when there's like allies who want to put themselves in harm's way to protect trans people, to protect lesbians, to protect gay people, to protect asexuals. That's something else you see quite a bit, who don't want to have bigots run the world, who don't want to see fascism, essentially, right? Like just the classic calling card of fascism, targeting minorities, blaming them for the woes of society instead of some kind of economic collapse as a result of capitalism, and then continuously push them as the other, whether it be Jewish people, whether it be gay people, whether it be Roma people, whether it be disabled people. That was the entire way that it worked. Yeah.
Trans pushing, gender affirming butchers and liars primarily target young people whose most likely outcome on the sexual front is...
Again, you can't get bottom surgery if you're a young person. You can't get top surgery until I believe you're 16 years old, which would make you a teenager, and that has to be done with the consent of both the person seeking medical attention and their doctor, and in many cases their parents as well. Again, it's one of those things like, why do you want to involve yourself? Why do you want to be a part of that? It would be so odd if Jordan Peterson ran up to like hospitals to go after them in the same way that he goes after trans folk. Like, he was going after cis kids who needed chemotherapy, but use the same rhetoric. It's like, oh, they're pumping bloody chemicals into your veins and it's going to destroy the insides of your body. It's poison. Poison, I say. Refuse. Like, parents would be like, fuck off. This is going to save my kid's life. What are you doing here? What business is this of yours?
Homosexuality. So the transgender affirming butchers and liars are differentially destroying the youthful gay community. And that's
weird, because like every single time I hear this, every time I hear like, LGB without the T, and then you look at polling, it's like, I've heard the rumor that apparently lesbians, gay women, hate trans people because it's trans people trying to get in on their own scene and stuff like that. And then you look at the polls and it's like overwhelmingly they're supportive. There's more supportive than gay men are. And just overwhelmingly, if you poll LGBTQ plus folk, yes, they are very, very in favor of trans rights. Most people are. People who are already marginalized society might be even more, in tune to the marginalization of a different group.
Not a community by any stretch of the imagination. And there's a famous conservative thinker.
But like, how do you define community? Like that's such a weird thing to say. They're not a community, says I, the person who's not a part of it. Is that because you weren't invited to the parade? Did someone turn you down at the club that didn't let you in? Oh, bloody hell, this is not a community. You know, they're attacking me for being straight.
Chesterton, and Chesterton has a concept, the fence, and Chesterton's fence is based on the observation that if you're walking somewhere you don't understand and you come across a fence, you should probably not tear it down because you don't know what it keeps in or out. And the Pride movement has torn down a lot of fences. And maybe
the irony of this sentence. Let's play it one more time, because this is exactly what he's trying to do right now to queer folk.
Fence is based on the observation that if you're walking somewhere you don't understand and you come across a fence, you should probably not tear it down because you don't know.
That's what you are trying to do to gay people, to trans people, to queer people. You're not even heeding your own advice. You are coming across a fence that you understand. Yeah, it's a community you're not a part of. It's not one that's trying to attack you. It's not one that's going after you. It's one that wants protection because straight people, cis people, go after them. That's wild. How you can just say things out loud and be so oblivious to the fact that you were making a point about yourself.
What it keeps in or out. And the Pride movement has torn down a lot of fences, and maybe some of those fences needed to go, but all of them didn't need to go. And there's plenty of monsters.
So which ones? You know, the fact that police officers would look the other way if gay clubs were raided, the fact that police officers would look the other way if gay people were beaten to death in the streets, the fact that people could be jailed for loving someone else, the fact that people could be chemically castrated for loving someone else, you know? Like, this is some of the most brilliant minds. One of the people who helped decode the Nazis' codes during World War II was chemically castrated just for being gay, shit like that.
Is coming out to play now, and I would say that's especially true
like
on the
inventor of the modern computer
side, and that's why we're seeing this butchery in the medical community, abetted by idiot allies and driven by greed.
It's kind of funny how Fox News, who's ever editing this, is putting just the most lovely photos across everything. Every single time he's like, well, the butchers, and they're flaunting it. And then all of a sudden it's just like someone holding up a sign that says love means love. I wonder if it's like an intern just fucking with them.
And those aren't the worst monsters that exist. And so if you tear down enough fences, you're going to find out what they're for. Now, I read recently, like this week, that...
Yeah, I know. That's why Stonewall happened.
Support for gay marriage is plummeting. Right. It's like, well, keep pushing. Keep pushing. You're going to lose every...
That's wild. People fighting for rights, and then in the other direction, it's like, oh, they're going too far. Ugh, I got no choice. I had to become a Nazi. It had to be done. God damn it. You know, you wanted one too many rights. You got gay marriage, but you didn't stop there. All of a sudden, you're supposed to have the same medical rights as everyone else, and you should be able to go to a doctor. I got no choice. Like, keep pushing, you know?
Everything you've gained, and I'm not celebrating that at all. That's not the point at all. But like, I'm just done with it. I don't like the flag. I think it's a piece of idiocy.
Yeah, refracted light. How could you? How could you? The beams. Oh, they go straight into my eyes. Multiple colors, reds, blues, the dreaded purple.
I don't understand why it changes every bloody week. I don't know who makes those decisions. I don't like the acronym and all the...
Yeah, I mean, this really just sounds like a sad dude who wasn't invited to the clubhouse, you know? He keeps like, it's not a community. It's not a community. But at the end of the day, why am I not invited? Why wasn't I allowed to come? You know?
Mystery surrounding it. I don't like the fact that the LGBT agenda, whatever that is, increasingly dominates the school system. I don't like the fact that it's targeted at young people. And I think the surgery, the gender-affirming care movement, I think it is Nazi Auschwitz level awful.
So that's a form of downplaying the Holocaust is what you're doing there, and the severity of the Holocaust in addition to everything else. And yeah, no, there are very, very few operations or surgeries that we give one another where there are very, very high rates of people approving of what they'd undergone, right? Knee surgery, I've brought up before. You're looking at somewhere between 20 to 25% of adults claim that they're not satisfied with the surgery afterwards. Because yeah, it's a very complicated thing to operate. When it comes to gender affirming care and the surgeries therein, when you're looking at rates of over 95% satisfaction, that's incredible. That's something where, why in the world would I, someone who's never going to have to undergo any of that, you know, I have the privilege of being cis, why would I get angry? Why would I get mad at someone else who's, oh wow, that helped you? Well, we have to stop it. You know, put a stop to that bloody butchering. This is basically the same thing the Nazis did.
That it should not only stop, and now, as they've decided to do in the UK and in most places in Europe, but I think all the people that were involved in the surgical transition of minors should be imprisoned.
Isn't it wild that, you know, the Psychological Association of Canada is determining right now whether or not he should be allowed to have a license? So random. so random for someone who wants to be a professional in this field. He doesn't even want to practice, by the way. He doesn't practice. He's very, very wealthy. Fucking hundreds of millions of dollars from this shit. This is way more profitable. So he decided, yeah, no, I know my true calling. It's just to be a bigot. But yeah, can't imagine why anyone would think that this man shouldn't have a license.
So there's a lot of house cleaning to do on the pride side of things.
It's wild they haven't taken it already. Well, why do you think that is? Is there just a concerned effort by him to consistently dox the people who are on the board, you know, make their emails public, get his like rabid fans who all feel that, like, you know, Jordan Peterson is daddy and they have to do everything that he says in order to preserve manhood, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, Justin Trudeau's coming after me and they're trying to, you know, this is communism, this is China, it's happening, not the good kind, not the milking kind, the bad kind. Like, obviously, you know, they're most likely getting flooded with shit where people are just like, I can't believe that you would deny one of the most esteemed doctors in history his license to practice to an empty room. He deserves the right to be able to practice to nobody, even if he's already said he's not going to, you know, be doing his daily practice. I don't care. He deserves it. This is communism.
And I don't believe that a celebration of an identity that encapsulates something like 3% of the population before it became a fad is
before it became a fad, people used to be put in prison if they found out you were gay. People would get fucking hanged. Do you know what the Efsler drag means? That was people who would get tied up to vehicles and dragged until they died on the back. That's what that was. It was incredibly scary. Yeah, no surprise, all of a sudden there's more people reporting now than ever before. Not to mention when there's more access to information, because like, human sexuality is so complicated. That's one of the things that everyone's like kind of finding out or learning, right? As time goes on, you learn how much more complicated human sexuality is. All of a sudden, like, a lot more people who may have been like, oh, so if there was an actual like range, if instead of saying that you just say gay or straight or neither, if unless there was more than those two options, what if it was just like sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. It doesn't mean that you want to go suck a dude's dick or anything, but I'm just saying sometimes you might look over and be like, oh wow, it's a good looking man. And it's like, yeah, it is a good looking man. A very good looking man. Yeah. Oh shit, no homo, bro. No homo. Don't worry. I knew it was no homo. Okay, good. Whew. All right, yeah, we're straight again. Ooh, well, that was close. I know. That was fucking close, dude. You almost slipped. I know. He was a really good looking. Don't fucking say it. Don't you say it. All right. You're straight. Talk about titties. I want to hear you talk about titties and how amazing titties are. Man titties?
Inclusive in any manner whatsoever. So I think all of it's...
What are your thoughts on Kinsey? I think like a lot of the work is groundbreaking. I understand and agree with the criticism of the more controversial aspects, but I think the very revelation that in fact, you know, some of the things that came out of the Kinsey report was indeed the fact that a lot of men had either had homosexual thoughts, urges, or encounters, including an overwhelming amount of them had either masturbated with another man or masturbated another man. And like, it breaks my heart to think of the millions and millions of Americans surveyed who up until that point, or up until they're told otherwise, or up until that report came out, may have thought that they in fact were horrifying and horrible and bad people. Like, that's the really sad thing about that, or even bisexuality in general, is the very fact that you're so vilified as a dude for being potentially gay your entire life. It's the worst thing you could be outside of being a woman, because it's just like you have to be masculine, and that's the opposite of masculine. That's feminine, and that's gay. And so of all those, you know, millions of dudes who had either jerked off in front of a guy, jerked off a guy, or thought of jerking off to the picture of a guy, but weren't actually fully gay, and they might hate themselves, and that could haunt them their entire lives, and they might think about that their entire lives and just be like, fucking hell, I didn't know that I was actually secretly an F-slur, like anything like that, right? And then it's like, But what if that was normal? What if it was? What if the range of human beings who report being 100% homosexual and 100% heterosexual is just not it? What if there's a large percentage of which we don't know because we're not allowed to ask these questions? We're not even allowed to talk about it without someone else making fun of you or criticizing you. But what if you were allowed to explore those kind of parts about yourself? You might find out that there are so many other ranges of sexuality, right? You could be someone who's never romantically attracted to the opposite sex, but then occasionally you are sexually, but you might not even want to ever act on it because that's not appealing to you. You could be like demisexual towards one person or one gender in one regard, while being fully hypersexual towards another gender. And there could be a name for that, but we don't know yet because, again, we can't have these conversations, right? And that's the profoundly sad thing about viewing the world through that lens. Honestly, it's bigotry that permeates even the queer communities. Like you're probably seeing right now, it's Pride. Once again, the bisexual discourse is starting up, because it's once again one of those things where it's like, bisexual women get vilified by people on both ends, by straight people and gay people, as only doing it to impress straight men. They only do it for the male gaze. They're not actual real bisexuals, okay? It's women who just like to make out when they're drunk because they know that all the guys find it really hot, and then they're just doing it to turn the guys on. And that's really fucking horrible, because that's bisexual erasure for women. And for men, the way it goes is that if you're even slightly, a little bit open about being even slightly a little bit gay, no, you're 100% gay. Oh, dude, you're just gay. No, you don't have to pretend to fit in that you like ladies. There's no such thing as like a dude who mostly likes ladies and just likes a couple guys. No, if you suck one dick, you're gay. That's it. That's just the rules of the road. All right, I don't make the rules, but them's the rules, and that's just the choices for you in the bisexual world. Whereas, for me, I've encountered way more bisexual men who are mostly gay and then have been occasionally attracted to women. And then there's, within the gay community, the erasure of bisexuals who aren't very into men because they feel that they're somehow maybe using it as a label or trying to be a tourist, or it's dangerous for gay guys in general because you can literally get killed in some places if you try to hit on a dude and it turns out that he in fact was not gay, and then you threatened his manhood, so he's like, oh, I gotta beat the hell out of you, you slur, shit like that. It's all this garbage and all this unpacking. It comes from these hangups put forward by assholes like Jordan Peterson. And while there is progress, you are coming to the table at this point in history, again, after so much blood has been spilt before you. Gay liberation is necessary for the straight liberation in every way. Like I've said, in the same way that patriarchy is damaging to men, so too is homophobia for straight people. All of this shit and all these closeted bigots, they exist because they might not be able to explore parts of themselves, or they might hate parts of themselves, and it's for that reason that they act out as even more egregious, horrifying human beings. That might, Steven Crowder could be 100% gay, he could be pansexual, he could be homosexual. The only person who knows is Steven Crowder. But if it turns out that he is in fact, and all the testimony of coworkers and stuff, and it turns out to be true, well, then is that one of the reasons why he's such a fucking horrifying bigot? Is that one of the reasons why he's so mean all the time?
Pretty much all of it's a lie, and it's a dangerous lie, and it's a lie with real monsters hovering on the edges. And so, enough, as far as I'm concerned, enough pride in the churches, enough pride in the bloody banks. I don't want
pride in the churches. Oh, well, I know based-ass churches that are doing that.
to walk into the Bank of Nova Scotia and be celebrating pride. It's like
man, it's that meme, where it's just the right wingers crying at a little bunny, but it's rainbows. Oh God, refracted light. What's going on? Well, is that a rainbow? Is it gay? What's the prism?
I want to go and put my money in or take my money out without any political idiocy, and certainly without any celebration of sex.
What does the bank invest in? Is it apolitical? Do they invest in pipelines? Do they invest in the military-industrial complex? Do they invest in the genocide of Palestinians? You might want to look into that. I don't think your bank is apolitical, Jordan, even if you have to fucking see a rainbow flag at the counter.
Sexuality. I don't know what the hell the banks think they're doing. And the churches, well, that's just, for the churches to be flying pride flags, it's like pride is the cardinal Christian sin. Right. So what the hell? What's going on with the flags exactly? What exactly are you celebrating here? Tolerance. It's like, yeah, tolerance of vice is not a virtue.
Okay, because he keeps saying it, let's look up how pride is defined in the Bible, specifically in relation to the 7 deadly sins. All right, the 7 deadly sins were first enumerated by Pope Gregory I the Great in the 6th century, and later elaborated by Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century. Along with pride, they include wrath, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, and sloth. Pride causes a person to negate God and take all credit for one's accomplishments. It's not being used in that context whatsoever. There are a lot of gay people who believe in God. There are a lot of gay people who love Jesus. You know, there are a lot of gay people who love the Prophet Muhammad and who love Allah. There are, you know, that's not what the pride is about. It is, as you have already been explained to clearly, but you haven't listened, yes, about inclusivity, about loving thyself and loving oneself, and that you should love others as well, Jordan. You're doing wrath. This is wrath. All of this, wrath. You've given into wrath. You're sinful.
Howdy everybody. I just wanted to let you know that for the cost of a cup of coffee, you can unlock bonus uncensored episodes of Mind Explosions by going to patreon.com/theserfs. Our videos couldn't exist without your support, and all our content is released early to our Patreon subscribers, as well as a ton of extra content you can't get anywhere else. Please like, subscribe, and thumbs up this channel, and if you're feeling extra perky, share it anywhere you think people would like to see or learn from our videos. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We first want to give a shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. This program is produced thanks to the generous support of our Patreon supporters: Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbar Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multi Mondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Bomey, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Travis McClinton, and Words Greenwood. As well as every other person you see on the screen right now, this show would not be possible without them. And if you want to join these wonderful people who make this entire program possible, simply go to patreon.com/theserfs and you can unlock uncensored and bonus episodes and, you know, help us exist.